Hello and welcome back to ELT Under the Covers, where we, as English language teaching professionals, we look at the good and the bad of teaching clips on the internet. Today, we're actually looking into a video, a pilot episode of Learn English with a celebrity. And that celebrity is Ricky Gervais. But before we dive into this, we're going to do a quick introduction. I am Neil of Team Teacher, and I am joined by the statuesque, the wonderful
Ricardo Rich, Professor Rich, youtube.com/Professor Rich. How's it going? We are going to break this apart as professional teachers with shed loads of experience.
Yeah, so we previously looked at a video with Ricky teaching British slang for Vanity Fair, and it wasn't so bad.
Yeah. Well, he was the best of a bad bunch, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was all right. One of the things I remember commenting on is how kind of natural his pronunciation models came across. And I found that was nice. Yeah, considering he wasn't actually a teacher. And his explanations were very good as well, very contextual, kind of gripping in a way. And
his examples were very natural, and you kind of tied to him and his personality, so you could kind of really see him in those scenarios. I think it added to it.
Yeah, and in general, I mean, he was actually pitching to an American audience, but I think we both kind of thought, well, these aren't too bad explanations for someone as an English language teacher. So that kind of relates to what we're doing today, right?
Yep, and this episode, it's him, plus he's involved his friend, Karl Pilkington, I believe his name, and he is the star of Idiot Abroad, a very funny series about a man that just likes what he likes, and he likes what he likes. He's very much a home bird, and then he gets put abroad. So I'm interested to see where this is going to go with regarding learning English, because both of them, they do speak English. Maybe Karl Pilkington less so. But let's check it out.
All right.
Surely not. Surely not.
Hello, and welcome to Learn English with Ricky Gervais. I'm Ricky Gervais. With me, Karl Pilkington.
All right.
I won't be speaking your language. I won't be translating what I say. I'll just be speaking English, okay? The translation will come up on the bottom of the screen. This is my friend, Karl Pilkington. He is bold. He is bold. He has no hair. Karl Pilkington has no hair.
Yeah, I know. They can see I've got no hair.
No, I know.
What do they need to know that for? If they learn a language, bald isn't a bald head isn't that important. Teach them how to ask for bread or meat.
I'll get to that. But this is about sort of friendship and family, you know. So it's all useful. There's so many words, you know. They might as well start somewhere.
There's too many words. A lot of words. Lot of words.
So from a serious perspective, I think what's happening here is we have a teacher who hasn't properly prepared their class. He said something about family and friends, and then he's like, he is bald. He is bald, which obviously...
Well, you could be describing, family and friends. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, a little bit out of context, though, isn't it? Yeah. And then his mate suggests you should tell him how to ask for bread. Yeah, ask for bread? Is that really the first? That's like the first thing you need to know in English. Please, could I have some bread?
Because if you're learning English, you're likely probably to be impoverished or something, struggling to get some sort of food.
Yeah,
give them the tools to be able to feed themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
But obviously, if this was a real lesson, You know, they would if they're going to do describers and that sort of thing, they would put them all together and bold and use different ways to describe them. I kind of feel like maybe that's where they're going to go. Like they're going to say
I do.
ugly or use a whole bunch of different
Yeah.
adjectives.
He's got shitty clothes. Shitty clothes. Yeah, they could. Or it could just be totally out of context. It's just not the most intriguing way to introduce it, is it?
No.
But yeah, I mean, yeah, if they were going to, like you say, they were going to do it. I mean, the thing is, with the standard community language classroom...
I'll give him that.
Well, okay. The standard kind of format in the community of language classroom is that you start by setting schemata, as the fancy word. It basically means you sort of talk about the main context of your class. Now, that doesn't mean adjectives. So it doesn't mean you don't... Some people do this, but personally, I don't think it's a good idea to come in and say, right, guys, let's talk about adjectives of personality that you know. Oh, by the way, we're going to do adjectives of personality. You can do stuff like that. People actually do. I mean, there's the board rush game where you kind of line up the class into two teams and say, right, now write all the, we're going to do adjectives of personality or whatever. 1 point for each, quick as you can. You write it, you've got 2 minutes, then you pass the pen to the person behind them. I mean, people actually do stuff like that as a warmer. But in my opinion, it's more, you should be focusing more on the theme, not the language point. Mm-hmm. So we have to think, what is the context of calling someone bald? Well, maybe the context you want to place it in is describing someone, which means, what are you going to do with your class? Well, you could have a task where students need to describe the thief or something, right? And they have a picture of the thief and they have to describe the thief to the police officer. So they have to use things like, oh, he was bald, he had, green eyes, he had a beard or whatever. Mm-hmm. So then you have your context. So what do you start your class with? Well, you say, does anyone like crime fiction? Or has anyone experienced a robbery? Or, or you could have a little short video which shows like one of those videos like tutorial how to pickpocket, right? And get the class to react to it. The whole point is you're just tuning them in to your theme, which is another way of saying context. There is technically a difference, but let's not make it overly complicated. The theme of your language, which would be, for the suggestion I had, would be like crime. And then you go into the language. So after that, after you've got that context, then you're going into the language, maybe show a picture on the board of someone getting in a police photograph, getting a photo taken of them, a picture of like 5 people and say, right, how many bald people are there? How many people have long hair? Does the guy on the right have green eyes or blue eyes? All that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. And then you're leading up to your task then and also introducing some of their target language, which, as you were saying, is adjectives or whatever, right? Adjectives to describe people.
Yeah, no, it's hugely important because we don't live in a contextless world. Everything is informed by what is kind of like this scenario or this situation that's going on. So, if you're learning adjectives just outside of a context, it's really, really, if you think about it, it's just really bizarre. Because it's like, what are you really referencing? How you're using them in space? Because what is it that it's? I don't understand how you kind of go about teaching that way. Yeah, because I find it so strange.
But I feel like
you're cutting away all the ways that we normally learn, right? Of kind of like picking up like little clues and kind of you're working out, oh no, I think this is this because I see how this reacts with this.
Yeah.
And when there's nothing, it's kind of like a weird, it's like a Rorschach test almost.
Yeah.
Except you're
Yeah,
told the meaning.
that's true, but I do feel like it's elusively obvious. You know, it's one of those things that, if being perfectly honest, I don't think I did see the importance of context when I first started teaching.
Oh, me too, definitely.
And I was just told, I remember, people just told me, oh, you can't teach language out of context. And no one really took the full time to kind of explain that.
Maybe they
And
didn't
over
put it in
time, you
context.
start to develop an understanding because, innately, as someone who doesn't know how to teach languages, you want to teach out of context. It's like you want to throw up we've seen it in loads of the things we've looked at. You want to throw up on the board thing, he is, she is, they are. Like that's exactly what context language is. That's just totally out of context. Or you want to say, look at all these adjectives. And as I said before, people still do board rush. And board rush, if you do it the wrong way, it can be totally out of context. You can have board rush in context, right? Because you could say something like, do a board rush where they have to write things that people complain about, right? And then you're getting somewhere, right? You're getting somewhere closer. Even better, things that people complain about in a restaurant. Okay, great. Now we're getting a nice context compared to, right, I want you to write, verbs of action on the board, right? Yeah. And I'm sure people do that loads. So, a lot of the time, people will try, but absolutely what you were saying, context is so important, so critical. And it's amazing when you start to really appreciate that. It's amazing what powerful things you can do with context, because context, it doesn't even have to be always like, oh, I need to think of a real world context. No, you can have fictional context as well. That's the thing. Mm-hmm. Context can be quite powerful. I remember I never actually observed this class, but I heard third hand from someone who observed it about a class they did for like kids. And they used the warmer involved Phineas and Ferb, the kids like cartoon show. Mm-hmm. And then afterwards, the teacher basically pitched it as they were all detectives. And they had to find the platypus character. I can't remember what his name is, Thingy the platypus. But, he kind of framed it as, you are now all detectives. And, Perry the platypus has gone missing and we need to find where he is, So this was narrative contextualization, fictional context, right? Yep. Children are not going to be detectives. Being a detective means very little to a child apart from it's an amazing fun adventure in a game, right? Yep. Context is not only critically important, but also it's a powerful device that you can utilize in fictional and narrative ways as well.
Yeah, no, I don't remember if it was Piaget, but one of the developers of child psychological development, he does talk about schematic play. And context and introducing children and focusing not on trying to feed children kind of like knowledge or information, but trying to feed them concepts or allow them to explore concepts. So, like if you're wanting to look at doing a movement trajectory schemata, then what you want to do is, like have them like roll the ball and then be like, oh, I wonder, this ball rolls, and what about this little car thing, and then you push the car and the car rolls, and then they start doing that with multiple different things to see what fits in this trajectory schemata. And I kind of feel it's the same process with language learning. It's kind of like you give them that initial kind of context. And then if you do that right, they can go, well, I've got these adjectives here. I'm describing this criminal. Wait, maybe I could use these to describe a person that I want to find, love-wise, or I want to find another way. And then it becomes, oh, I can't use that adjective this way, but I can use it this way. So it kind of it gives them that ability, but they do need that initial, context. So if you're doing, if you don't have that context, then you're just saying this, push this ball moves. Then basically all you've taught is you push a ball, the ball moves. You don't get that context. It's a weird thing to think about, but it's how we work.
It's a thin wire. It creates a thin connection in the mind, a weak connection where it's actually it might quite likely just be a translation word to word, or maybe they might categorize something grammatically, but that's a very weak connection, just a couple of neurons linking together or whatever. I don't know exactly how neurology works, but I have read some stuff about this. I know it's something like that. Whereas when you contextualize something, you're firing off all kinds of stuff and you're linking it all to that.
Yeah.
So it's like you link it, you link like the description of criminals, the description of people, baldness, beards, all these different things, communication, because they're communicating with each other. So just all these things rather than just a list of adjectives, which has nothing to really connect it to. Oh, it's a list of adjectives. What's an adjective, kids? Oh, it's something you describe someone with. Okay,
Yeah.
Not useful to many people apart from maybe academics and grammarians.
It's strange as well because that's the general idea of what people think about when they're like, the pop culture idea of learning a language. Yeah,
not even learning a language; it's just learning, isn't it? It's the idea of learning is like it's all about
like
learning
you're collecting
data,
a whole
data
bunch of
tables
words or little information, and you're like, oh, did you get it all? I think so. What do I do with it now? I don't know.
Yeah, and I actually think there's a couple of things that comes from. I guess we're kind of lingering on this point a little bit, but just to briefly mention that there are a couple of ways things that comes from. I think one is the fact that the educational system is heavily built on the idea of making automaton workers who, in Victorian England, to go down the coal mines and go into the factories. So you're teaching the previously uneducated. So what's the easiest way to teach them? Because they don't, they haven't been educated before. Well, we don't really know how to teach them. Let's just give them things that they have to learn rote. And if they don't learn them, they get a whack on the hand with a ruler. And then after they have learned them, then we're going to send them down the coal mine anyway. So they don't need to think complex thoughts. We just want them to know that 5 pieces of coal and 5 pieces of coal is 10 pieces of coal. So it was designed for that. And then the other side of it is, I think when academics get to a very high level, things like tables and information actually become highly contextual because those people know so much that when they see a table of something, they probably already know like 80% of that table and only 20% of it's new. So they've got their context because they've got like, oh, yeah, it's like if you see a list of words and you already know 9 of them and they're categorized in some way. It's like, these are family members. There's 9 of them. One of them I don't know, maybe it's stepson or something, Teacher, I don't know, stepson. Oh, stepson, that's the teacher explains it. Boom, done. It makes sense then when you already know 90% of it. But when you're actually learning a whole load of new stuff and you haven't got that context and you're not an experienced learner in any field, not just languages, but wherever you are, then it's not the most effective way to learn. And as I said, it's just that weak neural link. You haven't got enough reference points. So we need to present it in a different way.
Yeah.
Rant over.
Totally. I'm not going to go any further with that because there's a whole bunch more that I think we could just spiral down.
We could just keep going on that.
We could keep going on. Keep going on. But you should definitely check out our Michelle Thomas video because I think his methodology would be a great way to kind of someone to build that. But I'll put a link below and I'll flash it up on the screen. But maybe we should just get back in and kind of see where Ricky goes with this.
So you say it. Karl Pilkington is bold. Karl Pilkington has got a head like a fucking orange.
Right, I really don't know why they need to learn this.
Because they might need to say that one day.
No, but I get enough abuse now from English people. I don't want Chinese suddenly to be about fucking orange. Teach them how to say milk. I need milk. Milk for tea. Coffee. Teach them useful stuff.
Okay, well, go on, teach them something then.
Who am I talking to?
People around the world, they can't speak English yet. So what are they...
Well,
so,
Chinese
well,
are the
doesn't
ones
it
that...
Okay, what?
I've been to China, and none of them know English.
Right.
So they need to learn English.
Okay.
So, what would they want to know? You see, they don't need to know about milk, because they don't like milk. They think English people smell of milk. They smell of milk. Smell.
What does smell mean, Karl?
Smell. Stink. Fucking hell, you smell. Rank.
Rank. So you've got a Chinese fella, he's coming over here and he's learned the word rank, meaning you stink.
Smell. Stank. Stunk. That stunk.
Give an example.
You smell. You shit.
Why are you teaching them pidgin
Because you told me, you said they want to know about smell.
Yeah, right. But why are you teaching them without prepositions and proper grammar? Why are you teaching them to speak like this? Stink, you shit. Why are you teaching them to speak, to just speak proper English?
Right, okay then.
Always speak proper English. Okay.
That's a really good point.
So what do they want to know?
Well, what smell mean?
Smell.
This is about...
So we're featuring the word
okay, right,
smell.
right.
Smell.
Yeah, it was a good point. And another thing I'd come up with is Mr. Pilkington's little thing there. To take a positive away from that, clearly he was fumbling around, had no idea how to explain it. And that's
He's
the
kind of
comedy
trying to grade his language almost, I guess.
Well, yeah, not specifically lingering on that point, but
Okay.
to take a positive out of it, he did give a bit more context than Ricky was giving. So Ricky was just, you're bald, right? Which is just, I've got this guy here and he's bald. But then he's going, oh, well, Chinese people don't like milk, but they think that English people smell of milk. And that is actually personalizing it.
Yeah.
So he's coming up with a personalized language point. But then obviously, you know, the comedy ensues afterwards. But then, yeah, you're right. Ricky then makes a good point, saying that he wasn't speaking naturally. Ironically, Ricky himself, when he said that, didn't sound particularly natural to me.
Yeah, he sounds synthetic.
Always speak proper English. But I guess maybe I'm getting a bit overcritical at that point, because in general, he's getting the idea across. Yes.
This is about the word smell.
Right, when something smells, they know what it means. It's when something stinks, when it's
Well, no,
hot.
it doesn't always mean that, because it's also a verb.
All right, a nice smell.
It's also a verb to smell. It's a verb. Smell is a verb.
Yes, but what they've got to remember is if they go up to someone and go, you smell, it's not always positive. You
Right.
wouldn't. You say you smell nice,
Right.
but if you say you smell, they'll get a smack in the face.
Smack in the face. Smack in the face. Karl, what's a smack in the face?
When someone thumps you, thump.
The worst English lesson ever. Right, okay. Okay.
What would they want to let you see? That's why we've got to focus on. Are we focusing on Chinese?
No.
Well, we should, because different people want different things.
Right,
That's
So what
really
would
true.
Chinese want? They come to England.
right.
What?
Yeah,
they
different
want-
people want different things. And maybe it would make probably more sense not to separate them necessarily by nationality. So probably like all the people learning business English probably have more in common than, you know, all the Chinese people learning English, for example.
Yeah. It's
It
very
is a
true.
good
You know,
point, isn't it?
different language learning goals. You know, you're wanting to pass some, language immigration tests,
Yeah.
or you're wanting to, do it because you're, I don't know, some sort of air host or steward or something like that. So,
Mm-hmm.
the language is very much focused based on your profession.
Yeah.
And business English, a whole bunch of different things.
You get everything. You get everything. The other day, I had the second native English speaker come to me for classes. The first one wanted to improve his emails because he'd got promoted and he'd never learned how to write correctly. And we actually had a similar situation with the next student most recently, who again came to me for help writing emails. Now, the second student's case was a little bit different because I looked at her emails and actually they were good, very good. And so I think she was just the kind of victim of someone being a bit mean and somehow took it to heart. But, who would have thought that? I never would have thought I'd ever have a native speaker coming to me for like help with their English. I don't even know how.
It comes down to them, people not going through a process of learning English. Like when my parents were growing up, they did grammar lessons, and they actually in the classroom were like, this is a sentence structure, this is blah 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 blah. So now when I was growing up, we didn't have that. It was just English language, and we talk about Shakespeare or well, that was English lit, but we would just write stuff, and you would get corrections, but you never really kind of fully had a concept or could articulate the way sentences work. It was just you just learnt it naturally and you wrote it naturally. So I feel like people kind of feel because they can't
I think it's a bit of a state school phenomena. I think in the kind of expensive public schools, they do learn that stuff, and they learn how to write essays and they learn how to write emails and stuff like that. But like you say,
it feels
in my school,
it's something that you have to learn, and really by doing essays you learn the structure and how to do them. It comes part of the process.
Yeah. Okay.
Why are you talking to me like I can't understand?
Because
English
I'm
now?
trying to think what to be clear to them.
Okay.
So I'm dropping out.
So forget where they come from, wherever they come from in the world, they all want the same things.
No,
okay?
but words don't mean the same thing. At certain places, there's people where it stinks in the world. They wouldn't come to England and need to say it smells because they're from a smellier place.
No, they're not.
Yes, they are. Milk. Let's do milk.
Okay, let's do milk for anyone who isn't English. Okay, okay. We will act out a scenario now where you might need milk. Okay.
Role play. Okay.
Hello, Karl.
All right.
Would you like a cup of tea?
Yeah.
Yes, please.
Please. Strong. What tea bags have you got? That is a question I ask.
Come on.
Because it all
Authentic.
depends on the amount of milk. Do you have Thai fu? That means more milk.
Thai fu does not mean more milk.
No, it's a very strong tea bag.
Right.
Twinings, little bit.
This isn't. They don't need to know the details. This isn't a
Well, this is interesting now because Ricky's getting frustrated because he's thinking, oh, but my language point, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, Karl here is actually, although it seems a bit odd, and it's supposed to be a joke in that way, but he's actually the one who I think is in the right, in that he's just given a natural conversation. And the point should be, even if it is a little bit peculiar, I don't think I've ever asked anyone, well, maybe I would, twine. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Twinings, actually, to be honest. I prefer
Yorkshire.
Well, I've gone off Yorkshire, actually, which for reasons that I'm not going to mention here. But no, at the moment I'm drinking Tetleys. I don't mind PG tips sometimes as well. But anyway, it could really come up in conversation. It's not necessarily that weird. But the point is, it just came out naturally for him, or he claims it did. And therefore, Ricky's frustrating here about it not being on the language point. I don't think that is necessarily a valid criticism. I would say, well, adapt the language point because you want it to be authentic.
Yeah.
So stop getting hung up about just teaching milk. Make the whole class about tea.
Well, what do you do in that scenario? So say you're the teacher and you've picked one of your students up. You've chosen one of the students to help you demo some language.
Yeah.
And they
or role play a conversation. Right?
Yeah. They introduce like this weird.
They go off piece.
Very niche language point.
Well, very
and
you're kind
of looking to do a broader, I don't know, drinks and beverages.
They go a bit off point. Well, yeah. So this is where actually being a teacher comes into play, because now you have to make a decision. This is why we have a teacher, right? The teacher is the director of the class. So you have a decision, right? You can either close it down and make it into a controlled practice activity, right? So you're making it less authentic, less free, but you're steering it towards the language you want, which, an example of that would be like, oh no, could you please try that again, but only use the words that I've written on the board, or something like that, right? Or try that again, but follow this conversation pattern, or, try that again, but, read the roll card, which says that, 1, you must ask for a cup of tea. 2, ask for milk, or whatever, right?
Yeah.
You basically control the language, and that's why in the CELTA they call it controlled practice, right? Now, the other way you can go with it is you open it up. You expand the scope of your lesson and you work with the emergent language, no matter how odd it might be. The reality is that sometimes odd things can get quite a unique reaction, an emotional reaction, which means that it's more likely to actually stick with the students, and therefore could be a very valid reason to diverge and go into a new area. Now, I think, in different situations, both of those things will be possible. If you're getting observed by a senior teacher, well, depends on the observer, actually. Theoretically, I think they should be able to accept both. But normally you have a lesson plan, the lesson aim, and you're preoccupied with achieving that language aim because you want to get the nice big tick that says, well done, your lesson was a pass, which means you'll be more inclined to go down the synthetic route of closing down the activity and throwing in some rules to make it a controlled practice.
Yeah.
Whereas I think there is equally an argument to be made for the other option of working with the emergent language and engaging the students on the spot. But I think both are possible in different scenarios. And, the teacher has to be a decision maker.
Yeah.
And this is where experience can really come in as well, because once you've experienced both those possibilities, right, which, we as experienced language teachers will have experienced them hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times, those kind of decisions, you start to get a feel of which way you want to go in different situations.
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and it's not a rigid do this, do that. It is more of a feel situation that's based on experience, but guided by the idea of what's going to help this particular set of students the most. If it's something that this new language point that emerges, if it's something that's really engaging with them, and it's a bit off kilter, but this is really going to stick. Maybe you lean into that. But if they're kind of maybe they're newer and more unsteady, like this is first couple of classes and they're still getting their feet, maybe you kind of keep it a little bit more controlled. But as long as you're kind of thinking about them and their stage in their learning, I think you can't really go that wrong. As long as it's not about what's convenient for you.
Honestly, I want to be realistic about it as well. And this is maybe a little bit controversial, but it's not just about them either. It's about the teacher a little bit and the mood and energy that you have at the moment. You might be more inclined to go one way or the other.
Yeah.
You teach the humans at the end of the day. And if you've got your controlled practice, you just want to fire it out and then get them into the freer practice and off they go, then maybe that's the way you're going to go. Whereas if you're feeling a little bit more flamboyant, it's kind of like, when Zidane, has the football and he's going down the field, he doesn't always like do a little Marseille twist and then flick it up. And, sometimes he just passes it.
Yeah.
So with that, are we ready to continue?
Let's jump back in.
Guide. This is English for people who can't speak English.
Start again.
Okay. Hello, Karl.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like a cup of tea?
Yeah, I'd love one. I'm gasping.
How do you like it?
Strong, no sugar.
Tea bag, okay?
Yeah, tea bag, yeah. Well, that should be all right.
Would you like some milk?
Just a drop. A drop, not much.
Would you like semi-skimmed milk?
Yeah.
Semi-skimmed milk.
Oh. It's all right, that.
There was quite a lot of like authentic language there, wasn't there? So it's all right. It's all right.
Well, I like they're more animated as well. You can often get this stuff and it's so stiff, and if you're not kind of if they're not acting it out, you're still missing on like that one spoke of communication as well.
I really liked the imaginary prop.
Yeah.
Yeah, imaginary props are cool.
Totally
that's kind of a drama technique, but yeah, that was pretty cool.
Karl is enjoying his tea. He had it strong with a drop of milk. So that's the basics. In England, we like to drink tea. We drink tea. We also drink coffee. We also drink beer. Let's go shopping. So I'll just come into a shop, okay? Tring.
Afternoon.
Hello.
Oh, yeah.
I want a fish.
What sort of fish do you want? We've got loads.
What sort of fish are there?
Loads. I haven't got time, to be honest. You're coming at a busy time. Have a look and come back to me.
I don't know what type of fish is this?
That's a kipper.
Okay. A kipper. What's a kipper?
Chinese and Japanese know fish really well. They don't need
Stop thinking we're just talking to Chinese and I don't know where the Japanese came. It was just Chinese people. This is for anyone who wants to learn English. Anywhere around the world. There might be Spanish. There might be French. There might be German. Okay? Why do you only care about the Chinese learning about this?
Because most Spanish people can speak English. They've been taught it. But all right, kipper. Okay. It's a fish. It's sort of a fishy sort of fish. There's some fish that's more meaty. Tuna. What sort of thing are you after today? Is this for you or for someone else?
This is for me. I'd like to buy a fish, please.
Right, but surely you know what kipper is. Look at it. Look at the fish. Here it's called kipper. Where are you from?
He's kind of making some good points, really. I mean, yeah, look at it, right? It's like, yeah, when I was, if I in Spain before I knew, how to say tuna or salmon. I mean, it's pretty easy in Spanish, isn't it? But let's say, is it meluza, which I think is like hake or something? It's like, I go to the shop and I want white fish, the flaky white fish. Okay, meluza, yeah. I'll have that one. It's not like I need to say, what's merluza, kind sir. So he's making kind of a good point there.
Well, yeah, and it's kind of weird that I always find it weird when people do those scenarios where they go to the supermarket and the people are going, what's this? And they're like, oh, this is a tomato and this is a eggplant and stuff. Because that's generally not the language that you use there. You're just like, oh, I want this. It's just mostly pointing and stuff. The times that you're using that is when you're, different context. I feel, I always see that when people are teaching it. It's just a weird, I don't know.
I feel like the only time you would actually say like this is a tomato and stuff in the supermarket would be if like you took one person with you who didn't speak good English and you were doing like a realia thing, going around and being like, this is an apple, this is a tomato. So, because for example, if they're Chinese and you don't know any words in Chinese, then you're kind of doing it without translating then, which isn't necessarily
I mean, it makes more
anyway.
sense to if you're going to do a lesson about fruit, that you would, make a fruit salad, and then they get to decide what fruit they're going to go put in the fruit salad, and at least you would have a context of that works a bit better.
Yeah. Well, we don't really know why Ricky introduced this activity anyway, do we? He just kind of said we're going to go in the shops now. I thought he was going to ask about milk, to be honest, because was that not the language point? But now it's about fish. And he seems to be frustrated that Karl's asking him what type of fish anyway. I think he just wanted him to give him a fish, didn't he?
Yeah.
But anyway, let's see where we go now.
Speak English.
I'd just wrap any old shit up and give it. You'll like this. Tenner. Rip you off. Because I'm busy. And that's what happens in this country. That's what they want to be careful of if they're watching this. If you come into England, don't be ripped off. Rip off. Conned. Taken advantage of.
Done up like a kipper.
Done up like a kipper.
Look at this foreigner. I done him up like a kipper.
This is when English gets complicated, because kipper, a lot of English words can mean many things. Where? Same word, different thing. Wearing. Where have you been? I'm wearing a jumper. Where have you been? Where?
Brilliant.
One word, two meanings.
He's not wrong.
At the spa. Hello. I'd like to book an appointment for a treatment.
Okay. When are you?
He's just doing like random stuff, isn't he? I want to buy a fish and now I want to book an appointment. Yeah.
It's so funny.
It's very funny.
It's very funny.
When do you think? We're busy all today. Tomorrow?
Can we just do it today? Can it just be available now? Can't we just do it that it's available now? There's nothing...
Well, all right, I can fit you in. Someone hasn't turned up yet, so we can get you in sort of in...
Again, that's a shame from an English teacher perspective, because I think the way Karl was going with that was actually quite realistic.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, we're all busy there. I mean, that is then you get into some serious context and you can get into the thing where... all kinds of language points with that. Present continuous, I'm going to the spa on Thursday. Oh, what are you doing on Friday? Oh, I'm doing this, using present continuous for future, something that intermediate students often struggle with.
It's like you said, but because, like Ricky's so focused on go to the spa, he's kind of missing.
Just make it simple. Yeah.
Yeah. He's missing. He's kind of missing the point in that, like the stuff with Karl
exactly.
that comes up with. He can do so much more with it. He's like stay to the language point.
He's taking away the authenticity.
Yeah.
And it's always dangerous that it's like you want to minimize how much you have to change language in the real world to present it to your students.
Yeah.
And you can't always rely on, especially when you're a beginner teacher, you can't always rely on yourself to be a judge for that. And even when you're a more experienced teacher, you can't necessarily do it. Because look at the points that I've been making about these bloody tuba teachers, including myself, because I also make this mistake sometimes where you just, you're not really presenting language in its very natural form. The truth is, when you're speaking to a camera on your own, even English speakers, they go into presenter mode, and that is natural speech for a presenter. Except the problem is the students are coming to the channel to learn just natural speech in general. Yeah. So that's why you would use audios in the classroom. But of course, most of the audios are synthetic because they're done by actors and they overact them, right? So what you want to do is you want to be able to take stuff from the real world that's as authentic as possible, alter it as little as possible, and base your lesson on that. And if that is a problem, If you look at that and you go, oh, but that's a problem. I want it to be nice and simple and easy and fit with my language point. Well, then there's something wrong with your language point.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you want to, I mean, it's true that with lower levels, it gets difficult because what the heck can a really beginner student understand about authentic language? But as much as possible, that's what you should try and do, because otherwise you are setting those students up to have many more problems down the line because they're not used to real language. They're used to fake classroom language. Yeah. I even watched a video the other day where a teacher was going on about fake classroom language. And she was quite good, actually. She was quite good. But she was definitely doing like a presenter voice as she was saying it. But like the whole video was about how classroom language really messes up students. And she did. I'm not going to say who it was because I've done similar things in the past, right? Yeah. But it just nails the point home. It just nails the point home that you can't get too authentic. You can get something that's overcomplicated that students can't understand, that you haven't scaffolded enough. Mm-hmm. You know, you can get that, but you can't get something that's too authentic. So all this complaining here about, oh, why don't you just make it simple? Why don't you he's making it realistic. Yeah. So make it realistic. Deal with it somehow.
Minutes. Okay. Right. Okay.
What would you like?
I would like a back, crack, and sack waxing, please. I would like my back waxed, my crack waxed, and my sack waxed.
Right.
Do you do the treatments yourself?
No.
I'd like you to.
Well, I can't.
Why not?
Because I have to be on reception taking calls.
Well, okay.
You can't request who's doing your sack, your crack, or your back. There's a woman in the back who does your crack.
Well,
This is fucking insane. Right, that's enough. I don't know what we're doing. I don't know who's going to learn anything.
Wait. Okay. Well, ask me some questions about. Okay.
Well, I don't have to ask you any questions. I said you can be going in 10 minutes. Okay. I'm not doing it. I'm a work kid. I'm not paid or qualified to be sorting your ass out.
Okay. Actually, thinking about it, the hair on my crack hasn't grown back, nor has the hair on my back. But my sack is very hairy. Wait, my sack is very hairy. I don't need my back waxed or my crack waxed, but I need my sack waxed.
Right. Now, I'm surprised you haven't done it yourself. Because it's the back and the crack that's the difficult bit. The sack you can do yourself. To be honest, it should all be growing at the same time.
No.
So there's something wrong with you. No. You've got a hairy bollock. When your back is lovely and bold.
Right.
You don't need it doing...
Bold. My back is
brilliant. It brings it all the way around.
My crack is bald. My sack needs waxing.
Right.
It's quite an emergency. My balls are very hairy. Can I have them waxed, please?
Yes.
How much just for the balls?
£15 for
£15
for the both.
For two. Okay,
yes.
That's good. So $7.50 each. It's $7.50.
Yeah, but we don't split it. That's the price.
Yes.
You can't have one done.
No,
it's
I have
£15.
I have two balls. I have two balls. How many balls do you have, Karl?
2.
Karl has 2 balls. Are your balls hairy?
Average.
Okay. Which is strange because Karl's balls are hairy, but he is bald on his head. His head looks like a ball. His head looks like a bald testicle. Karl has a head like a bald testicle, but his testicles aren't bald. Okay, how long will it take to wax my balls?
10 minutes. 10 minutes.
Okay. So it's £15 and 10 minutes. Can you do it? Can you do it now, please?
No, I won't be doing it. You'll be meeting Leslie in the back room.
I don't really. I'm a little bit Shy, I know you. Could you?
You don't know me, you've just turned up.
Could you wax my balls?
No, I'm not waxing your balls. Bollocks, scrotum. What else is there? Testi. If you're having one done. Bollocks. Sack. What else is there?
Okay,
Right,
we've done that
done.
waxing. Okay. At the doctor's. Hello, doctor.
Hello.
I have a pain.
Okay, whereabouts is the pain?
My anus.
Of course it is. None of this is worth you learning in a language. You go home. If you're ill, go home.
No, if a foreign fella is in this country
He
and
can go to the doctors and use our NHS system if he had an achy arse. He'd get on the first flight home. Why aren't you going travelling? You're here as a tourist.
Yes.
Yeah? Right, well, see London. Instead of worrying about your airy bollocks, see the London Eye. The London Eye. Tower of London. These are things that are going to be useful to them.
Okay.
Tower of London. London Eye. Buckingham Palace. The Queen. I've never been on holiday and had to have my anus seen to. I haven't had to have it seen to whilst I'm here at home. Give them useful words. Fromage.
Why are you teaching them a French word if we're teaching them English?
I'm just saying useful phrases.
Right.
I've got a headache.
Okay. What would you do? Okay. What scenario would you do to teach them?
Who are
Karl
you?
will now teach you a useful scenario.
Yeah, who are you?
Anyone you want me to be? What do you want to do?
The bins haven't been emptied.
Who? Okay.
Who are you?
You're making this scenario up. This
so,
is your.
So who are you then? The council?
It's up to you.
Right, you're my neighbour.
Okay.
Why do you keep putting bins out? The bin men doesn't come till Thursday. You keep putting bins out.
I'm sorry, Karl. I'm very sorry. I'm in a bit of trouble. I woke up this morning and it's the worst it's ever been. I've got distended. I've got a prolapse rectum. I've distended. My testicles are very, very low because I'm old. I'm lactated.
Yeah, all right. Listen, can you just put the bins out on the Thursday?
My balls
Yeah.
are so low because I'm an old man.
Can you put the bins out on the Thursday?
Okay.
I think it's just
That was very funny, although I feel like the censor might need to come out for some of those parts, perhaps.
Karl made quite a few good points, to be honest. Especially towards the end, where he's like, he's talking about, well, why do those scenarios, those doctor and spa scenarios for a tourist or something like that, or a general language learner? He's got to be within.
Yeah, it was all just higgledy-piggledy, wasn't it? And that's for the comedy effect. That's why they were doing that.
Yeah.
But it was just interesting, I guess, to see that, like you say, some of the points that Karl made were actually pretty decent. Not just about that. He made quite a lot of points that were decent, and brought in some authentic language stuff, even though he was like the butt of the joke most time.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of one of the points that we can take from this is you don't need to be you don't need to overthink it. Authentic language and authentic language learning and teaching just needs you to be authentic. It's not that
in terms of the model, yeah,
in terms of model, but also kind of thinking, what do the learners need in this scenario, or this situation, right? You don't. People try too much.
That's personalizing your syllabus.
Teach, it's just
Yeah, you're right. You're right, and you're absolutely right. And we've all fallen into that trap. I mean, I remember a time I've been teaching for quite a while, actually, maybe 3 or 4 years. So I'd done my CELTA as well. And I was at a summer school, and I was chatting about my prepped class. It's the first time I'd done a summer school, and I had an OBS coming up. At that time in my life, I hadn't had many lesson OBS, a bit nervous about it. So I was chatting to the guy who was going to observe me. And, you know, he said, well, what's the language point? What are you going to do? And I said, what I said, like, you know, the second conditional or something like that. Right. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, have you done the first conditional? You know, and I was like, you know, and it's kind of a good point because it's kind of like, oh, just pluck this thing out of my arse, the second conditional, for these students who've come to a summer school because, you know, second conditional, that's kind of what level they're at, right? And not really thought, do they actually know what the second conditional is? I don't know if it was the first and second conditional. I wonder if it was like past perfect. Yeah, I think it was present. It was past perfect, continuous, and simple. And it was kind of, his question was, you know, have you just done the past perfect yet?
Yeah.
So, you know, I'd made this huge example, a huge assumption that these kids at a summer school all knew what the past perfect was, and all didn't know the difference between the past perfect continuous and the past perfect simple, because otherwise why was I teaching it?
Yeah.
So it was completely not student-centric at all. It was just like, I just whipped it out of the grammar syllabus and gone, that's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like, I mean, in a way, that's kind of the problem with syllabus in the first place. That it encourages you to do that. In fact, it directs you to do it.
I mean, it's kind
whereas
of why
in
we
reality,
have
it's
provers, and, you know, we do these assessments before, you know, we get the students into class to kind of, you know, at least match them up with a syllabus. But the ideal scenario would be to kind of, you know, kind of gauge where they're at, and also know, you know, like, well, this is kind of something that they need, and then we can kind of like teach to that. But it doesn't always work that way, especially when it's a business, which is often is.
Yep.
Do you have any final thoughts on this?
I think we had a great discussion there in the middle. I think we talked about some really interesting stuff, bouncing off these very funny and rude men doing their little comedy scene, and you know, I think that's great. That's what this show's all about, isn't it? We can dive into stuff, and you know, I can't even remember exactly what the topic was, like about 25% of the way into it, but I do remember you saying that we could go on about that forever, and I feel like you were right. I think was that about context actually?
I think it was about context.
Yeah, I mean,
if you're watching this and you're interested to, you know, for us to talk further about schematas and context, and, you know, learning based around that, then, you know, drop us a comment, and you know, we'll add it to the docket. We'll add it to the list of videos that we've got coming up that we can talk about. We can really deep dive into. We base a lot of our videos on, you know, what seems, or what people request, or what people seem to engage with. So, you know, let us know, and we're happy to go that way.
Yep. Thank you very much for watching, everybody.
Yeah, if you're looking for... Go ahead, sorry.
YouTube.com/ProfessorRich for me, and
TeamTeachChina.com for me. Got a whole bunch of YouTube channels, Team Teach China, where it's linked to the website, Team Teach Your Baby, teaching, with parenting, Team Teach Your English. Put a lot of videos for self-study on there. It's all out there. Just Google it. Just Bing it, or Baidu it, or what have you, wherever you're watching from. And remember to like, share, and subscribe.